We now move on to a fantastic digital twin tech talks. I'm really, really excited about this because we have Seth Taylor, who's part of our advisory committee as well. We have Ram Seetepalli. We have Shane McArdle, who you saw earlier doing the Q&A with me, and also is the chairman of the advisory committee, and a real strong, stellar session it's going to be, led by the vociferous Seth Taylor, who will be moderating. So over to you, Seth.
Thank you, Adam. As always, thank you for another future energy event. It's great to be here with everyone. As Adam said, my name is Seth Taylor, and as digital twin advisor and someone who works at the El Segundo refinery, I'm super excited about this session on digital twin for downstream. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm joined today by two outstanding thought leaders from the industry, Shane McArdle, CEO of Kongsberg Digital, and also, as Adam said, Ram Seetepalli, Director, Data and Analytics and Digital Innovation at Motiva Enterprises. So I'm going to welcome those gentlemen. And we have a lot to talk about today, guys. I thought I'd start, just kind of step back a little bit and give a little bit of maybe context to the business landscape we're in today. It's an interesting time right now, right? There's a lot going on in the world. We are squarely in the age of AI, and people, I think, are feeling pretty anxious about the implications of that technology for how we work, how we make decisions, how we learn, develop, grow, and advance, or not. That seems to be weighing on people's minds a lot. We're squarely in the energy transition, right? So traditional business models are being disrupted. Companies are trying to navigate a very uncertain future, both in terms of their portfolios and how governing bodies will regulate, carbon emissions in the future. And as always, the geopolitics are dynamic and contentious as ever. And Shane, it strikes me that this is a hell of a time to be a CEO of a technology company. So I wanted to start there before we maybe dive into the digital twin stuff. But I've been thinking a lot about this. What guardrails do you invoke or leverage in these times to kind of position your company for future success? I think that might be an interesting perspective to launch us into some of our topic today.
Geopolitical uncertainty, energy. You just missed religion. That was the only point that I think was missing. It's not an easy one, Seth. I mean, we're constant change, and I think a lot of this starts with culture. You need to start with a culture. You need a culture of curiosity, of sharing, because if you have that, you'll have the collective, let's say, support of an organization, not just like kind of your leadership or certain key people inside an organization, but you'll have a collective overview from an organization that might have a certain strength. Let's say it could be external affairs, it could be a person could have come from a certain country, it could be China or US, as we see that kind of play out, that might have a perspective that other people in the organization mightn't have. But with kind of an open and curious culture, that information gets shared. It gets shared freely. So I think that's a key point, that we talk about this as an organization. We talk about, this is a little bit concerning, or this is something that's quite interesting. Like when AI kicked off in 22, generative AI I'm talking about now, the large language model, kind of or ChatGPT and OpenAI launched in 22. You should have seen the Slack channel in Christmas time. Within Kongsberg Digital, it just exploded. Has anyone seen this? What can we do? How can we, put something like this into our products? So that really, really helps keep a collective breadth of information. I think at the same time, when things are so turbulent or unsure, an element of predictability is very reassuring to me, very reassuring to our partners and our customers. So processes, it's quite a boring thing to talk about, but having good, flexible processes in place to ensure that we continue to deliver on quality, continue to deliver on time, the usual boring, predictable things that people look for, that kind of safe harbor during times of uncertainty. And then I would say there's another angle to that, right? If you are to stay ahead if you are to stay innovative, if you are to stay kind of interesting to the market, customers, etc., you need to be able to test, iterate, and fail new things on a constant basis. Not expensive way, but in a kind of reasonably cost-effective way, because things can suddenly start racking up in cost. Know when things are going to work out. That's kind of more a science, or sorry, an art more than a science. Know when to stop, know when to pivot, etc., etc. But you need to allow that room for innovation to happen within your company. Not to be afraid about the level of uncertainty, as long as it's boxed off and squared over here, and you can protect and be careful on what you can control from the predictable point of view. Yeah, that's at least that's how we view the world, and how we try to bring some level of control to us as an organization.
I'm thinking that the same guardrails that keep you viable as a technology company are very similar threads to what we do within a company to be effective at technology implementation. I think we'll probably come back to some of those themes: culture, trust, processes. Sometimes we don't always talk about these things as being critical to the success of a technology within a given organization or company, but I suspect maybe we'll come back to those. Ram, maybe I'll bounce a similar question to you before we get into the technical content, but what anchors your decision making and planning processes in an uncertain business landscape? Can you shed a little bit of light on that as in your role as director?
Yeah, so sure. Thanks, Seth, for having me here on this panel. A few things that we're seeing, especially in the downstream industry, right? There's a lot of things that are happening out there, like you mentioned. The energy transition, traditional business models are getting disrupted with geopolitical challenges. There's quite a few things we follow, and we're also seeing other companies in the industry follow. Which is one is a digital twin-based digital transformation is happening in a lot of pockets, siloed pockets, but it's alignment with the long-term strategic vision, right? Making sure that any short-term initiatives you're taking on do not put your long-term objectives at risk is one thing, just to make sure that you're thinking about what's going to happen 1 year, 2 years down the road. So alignment with long-term strategic vision is something that we definitely need to anchor on. The second thing is adaptability to change. We talk about being agile, but being agile is not just changing based on what the business is changing for, what the requirements are changing for, but it's also looking into entire paradigm shifts, right? Looking into what are all the changes that could happen out there, and how quickly can we change our ecosystem, our solutions, our infrastructure based on what's happening out there, like you mentioned, from a geopolitical perspective. That's the second anchor, right? So being adaptable to big or even small changes. The third one is when you know that certain changes are inevitable, are probably most likely going to happen, doing some scenario planning, right? AI gives us, in machine learning and AI and neural networks, actually, along with some elements of quantum computing, give us incredible ability to simulate and do some scenario planning and do some simulation planning for certain scenarios. What is scenarios? What could we do if there are some market shifts, right? Is there some geopolitical tensions? What are some things that we could be doing is something that we can start looking to from a scenario planning perspective. So that's the third anchor. The last one is building a solution that's very modular and flexible, not from just a scalability and flexibility perspective, but if due to all the external factors that are not within our control, we need to change how we build, how we architect, how we operate, how we plan, and how we deploy, how we monitor all these different things that we do with our assets, right? Leveraging digital twins, you can actually start looking into how you can build modular architectures that can stay very resilient even when those geopolitical or other issues that are outside of your control start happening. If you see any market shifts, building a modular and scalable architecture can certainly help with that. So just to summarize, the four things are the anchors, in my humble opinion, are alignment with long-term strategic vision and being adaptable to changes and leveraging AI, ML, neural networks, etc., to start doing some scenario planning, and also building modular and scalable architectures to help you be resilient to any shifts, any changes that are coming from outside, are some of the anchors that I can think of. So back to you.
Yeah, that was a fantastic answer, Ram, and certainly uh, we share a common background of energy, working in energy, and familiarity with the downstream sector. Everything you said there really resonates with me, especially the need for flexibility, for agile, trying to be efficient with trying new things and testing new things, and designing for that flexibility in some systems that maybe we used to think were supposed to be rock solid and foundational. We're understanding there's a need to have flexibility in those because you really can't see around the corner, and you can't see around the corner 5 times with how the technology is changing our landscape. Uh, I want to follow up on the thread around alignment with long-term vision, and use that maybe as an opportunity to start to pivot specifically to some of the digital twin topics that Adam had queued up for us. But the simplest question perhaps would be, how do you see digital twin as a technology aligning with some of the long-term business objectives or needs, opportunities of downstream? You're welcome to answer it with respect to your role in Motiva, or how you see the downstream energy sector. But maybe you could talk to us a little bit about how digital twin aligns with some of those needs and objectives and business goals.
Yep. So, great question, right? So, digital twin has been more about looking at what's been happening historically, having a historical view of the operational data, and also looking into what's happening right now at this moment, giving an exact digital replica of the asset and letting you control certain things, get visibility into certain things, right? But especially with AI, and if you start applying machine learning and AI, you could start looking into some very interesting things where your digital twin can show you a picture of the future, right? So it's not only, think of it like a time machine, you've not only been able to look into history, where the twin has been, where the asset has been until now, what is it doing today, but given stable conditions, how is it going to perform in the future? And also, if you start applying some simulations that I talked about earlier, right? Some geopolitical changes, or it could be market trends, or there could be some fluctuation in supply from a crude perspective. If you start putting certain things in there, introduce those factors, how does your digital twin or set of digital twins collectively, how can they behave? How will they behave? And simulating that for the future is a very interesting trend. I think we'll all start seeing some more action in. By putting those scenarios in place, you can also continue to manage your risks much better, simulating some risk scenarios, including all the geopolitical changes we keep talking about, and also cyber attacks, right? The inevitable cyber attacks, when they happen in the future, how will my digital assets and the corresponding processes behave, is something that I think we are looking to do, the industry is looking to do, to plan for what's going to happen in the future.
I love that response, and I think the framework of past, present, future, and all of those, not necessarily scenarios, but all of those timeframes being incredibly relevant to what the business demands, is really it's a great vision. It's a great summary of what we hope the digital twin brings to the table. I personally feel, and maybe this is a chance to pivot to Shane. One of the topics Adam had queued up for us is performance optimization. And performance optimization requires all 3 of those elements to do well, Shane. You need to understand prior history, you need to understand real-time situation, and then you want to be able to kind of play out what the future might look like and take the appropriate path forward. It feels to me, just through my conversations with peers, everyone has that on their digital twin roadmap. I think it's fair to say different, maybe different companies, different parts of the energy industry, and different parts of energy industry in general are at different levels of maturity of implementing capabilities like that within a digital twin environment. Can you maybe talk a little bit about where you're seeing maybe particularly advanced applications of performance optimization with some of your clients or customers, or even folks that you become familiar with in your travels? Are there common threads around how they're doing that in a more advanced way? And maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're seeing in that space.
Yeah, just how do I say, reflecting very much on what you were saying there, Ram, because just to pick up that time dimension, looking at the maturity of a digital twin from a time dimension, looking from the past, present, future, that's fascinating, because instead of looking at the maturity of the features, how much capability you have, or as we joke together, how many rows of data can we ingest, that's a very interesting view of a step ladder on maturity. Can it now do kind of historical analysis? Can it give you kind of real-time insights? Can it provide you some predictable insights? I think that's very much linked to performance, Seth. And by the way, Ram, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to try and put that into my own words. So it was a very nice analogy that you threw up there. But when it comes to performance, there is such a wide spectrum, right? Because each asset, each customer, each operator, they are at a different level of, just take performance. I'm not talking about maturity or quality in data or maturity in technology. Some have very high production efficiency, some have very low. A small change for one asset could be or represent a massive change for others. Like just having access to all of your data, your documents in a single source of truth, in context with like an engineering data warehouse. That's a massive performance step up for some assets that we're working at. And for us, we think that's very foundational, when compared to what we do. So I'm always reflective of the performance maturity that we deal with. We've got some wow factors from certain assets and users for things we thought were quite trivial in many regards. Wow, I can just click on this asset inside a PNID or a 3D model if you have it, or CAD or whatever, and then I have to put all the relevant data up linked to this. Yeah. So that's basic. And you go, no, this is game changing for us. So I think those players coming into this kind of in a new way, or in kind of very recently, there's been so much done, because often we challenge ourselves saying, oh, not enough has been done in this area. We're not moving fast enough. But when people are coming in with fresh eyes, fresh perspective, they're blown away by what's available out in the market compared to 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that's a great feeling, and sometimes it's a good reset for us as a tech company. And then you have the more mature customers, and there where we're going, man, we need to, that's trivial, that's done, that was done last month. Okay, what's coming now? What can we do? How can we drive that 1% more performance? And we have a couple of examples of this, Seth, and without naming names or particular assets or parts of the world, for one particular case, this was an upstream case, of course, we were able to optimize just on some of the chemical usage for an upstream asset. And that, first of all, the problem was we're overusing the chemical. It costs us a lot for that chemical. Okay, we reduce the chemical. But it led to a 1.3% increase on production. And that's sustained lift. Not only did we solve the little problem people were looking at, but when you look a little bit left, a little bit right, wow, we were able to increase the overall production, extend life of field because you're not destroying that well by over injecting a chemical into that well. So it was a really nice case that grew. We see a lot of, and I like what you said as well, Ram, about simulation. I think this is the overlooked child of the digital. We, as an industry, we've been using physics-based models for decades. It's a very reliable tool. It's clunky, it's heavy, it takes experts to kind of configure it and put together. It could take like 6 months to a year to kind of fully map out and configure a facility. But there's a lot of these simulation tools out there and a lot of simulated facilities out there. How can we leverage that to actually focus on performance at a bigger scale? And we're seeing a lot of success because, of course, we have some simulators in-house, but we also use third parties. It shouldn't matter. And I think that is something we need to leverage more of when it comes to performance, optimization around the assets or pieces of equipment. Then I think the final piece where you look at performance is decision making. How can we move to real-time, better quality decisions? Because the sum of any organization, business asset is based on the decisions that are taken. Can we elevate the collective decision-making quality of an asset? wow, that would be really, really good. If everyone had a full understanding of kind of the risk barriers that we have there, the targets, even just communication of what the objectives are for today, tomorrow, next week. Yes, we can do all of that. Are we doing it in the best possible way today? No, we're not. We need to embed that more against the work processes, because decisions, it's people, decisions, work. If we can start eliminating some of the tasks that make up a job today, not define, not is the job, but defines elements of the job, automate that away. We can do that, making that job much more meaningful, more valuable. Getting people using this technology, I think it's going to have a massive impact. But that's a change management side. And Ram, that's a lot of your background as well, I understand, on what you do. So I'll let you answer that. I'm only here to provide the technology that's quickly adopted.
Ram, I don't want to cut you off if you have a comment, but there was on the topic of performance optimization, you had alluded, Shane, sort of to there's a larger size of prize out there that transcends specific equipment or even a specific system or asset, and really start speaking to value chain optimization, right? And maybe this kind of touches on the comment that Ram made earlier about system of twins communicating with each other to provide a more holistic perspective on the business and the operation to really get at optimization at larger scales and to larger volumes. And I think that really invokes that concept of culture and trust for a company to be able to kind of have that vision for how they want their systems to integrate, have a unified vision for how interoperability and connectivity of those systems. I think the reality with digital twin right now is we have existing solutions that do things, but typically might do things in a silo. And one of the opportunities with digital twin is how do we lift and shift maybe an existing capability from being siloed to an integrated part of a larger digital backbone or framework. I don't have a specific question here, I'm sorry, but it's just occurring to me that maybe the pivoting from individual implementations of digital twin to enterprise, cross-functional, really getting into value chain optimization is a goal of a lot of industries and a lot of sectors. And Ron, maybe you could talk a little bit from the downstream sector. Are you seeing examples of digital twin find that type of traction where it's going beyond, being used for a very specific use case or to support a very specific workflow, and really start connecting to some of the value streams? What are some of your perspectives there for the downstream sector?
Sure, great question, but tough question, right? So I'll try to take some of the things that Shane mentioned as well in giving some examples, right? I'm a big fan of looking at a digital twin from a asset and digital twin perspective. However, I think, Seth, what you're trying to point to is if you take a collection of digital twins that contribute to a process, there is significant value in looking at a process digital twin, right? And overall, individual digital twins may be doing great, but collectively, is the process delivering value or not? As an example, right, Shane mentioned P&IDs, and they're mostly unstructured. You have all those P&IDs that come from as design, and they change into as build. But once you start putting as operating, right, and start putting a process across all the digital twins that contribute to a process in a unit as operating, and tie them back to as design and as built, now you have a wonderful view, a fantastic utopian view of how all this works together. Now, how quickly are we going to get there as an industry, as with the help of providers like Kongsberg Digital? We have to change to what kind of enablers they'll give us from Kongsberg, but that's the kind of stuff that we're looking into from the process digital twin. What are some things we could do where we can collect otherwise unrelated data, contextualize it, and start taking some unstructured data, combine it with the operational data? There's a lot of work to be done in this space, but from our perspective in downstream, I think all the downstream leaders are looking into how can we collect all that data, remove the silos and put them in one place to start with, and start building digital twins, then process digital twins, and start connecting to as design, as built, and as operating models. So that all that I think will probably take some time, and there's various levels of maturities within different companies, and we're really excited to go on a journey towards going towards a process digital twin and trying to figure out how we can drive value across one or more business processes.
Thank you, Ram. So I think we have about 30 seconds left. Shane, I know you're going to address your company with a keynote in just a few minutes. I'm going to give you maybe the last chance for a comment on what does the future of digital twin look like? 30 seconds.
Let's the pressure. No, look. I think more a comment of failure is a necessary consequence of doing something new, right? So when I think this is a marathon. It's not a marathon anymore. Actually, I think it's more like a 5,000 meter run. You know, I think we're taking down the timeline on what we can achieve with digital twins, right? I think the future is very much linked to the workflow enablement or workforce enablement, this process side of it, because that is problems at scale, and we like problems at scale. So we're heading in that direction, linking digital strategy to outcomes around the work, and I think that's where we'll measure the return on the asset, not just the return on investment.
Awesome. Ram, Shane, thank you so much for your perspectives and insights today. As always, great chatting with you, and look forward to future conversations here in the future energy space. Thank you so much.
Back to you.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Shane.
Taking part today. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Brilliant and captivating, as I knew it would be. Really interesting discussion, because what I liked about it is that you had Seth, obviously, as part of Chevron as the upstream, and then you had Ram from Motiva, the downstream side. And it was really good to get a convergence of views on what their priority is for digital twin implementation. And I really like that, because it's important to understand what I got from that conversation is, yes, you can put a digital twin in, but what's the scalable value of doing that? You know, how can you benefit your own organization? So you've got different remits for different assets. And I think Shane mentioned a really good point about something quite small could mean something quite large in the grand scheme of things for an operator. And I think that's really good to sort of understand, even a sort of a small increase in value. And Ram was talking a lot about how you can scale that process digital twin, which is really interesting. It's sort of the process side of unifying everything into one place, but the process of how it works. And that's a really interesting take on it. I think every time we do these tech talks on digital twin, they always seem to open up some really interesting avenues and some conversational points. So I really enjoyed that. I really liked it. I like the sort of fact that they were talking a lot about the pilot to scale as well, how to optimize it. So really interesting. I sort of love the theme behind that talk as well. It's really good. I know it's only 30 minutes, but the whole point of it is to cover specific things in a shorter space of time. So great work, Shane, Ram, and Seth. Brilliant tech talk.